So, cybersecurity, why is cybersecurity so top of mind right now? And why is so important in critical infrastructure?
Well, we've seen in the news, obviously, the prevalence and the increase in attacks and attempted attacks, and actually that it can grind businesses to a halt. We're seeing state-sponsored attacks. We're seeing ransomware groups who basically operate like a business that these days. It's not we pay the ransom, you get your data back. They're kind of credible in some senses, but it's billions and billions of dollars worth of damage, and obviously disrupting critical infrastructure projects is a very serious thing.
Yeah, it's one thing, I guess, a company in a sector being hit by cybersecurity. Is another thing, a critical infrastructure company who is in energy, who has vital supplies to households, gets hit, and not just data, but the actual impact, knock-on effect on people's lives. That has a complete different knock-on effect in the world. So, how many cyber attacks have you experienced personally?
Well, I think cyber posture is pretty good, but we have a lot of layers of defenses. We have had probably one significant challenge earlier this year, which came down to human error. At the end of the day, we've got a lot of technical defenses, but again, we're all fallible to a certain extent. So I think the big learn for us there was you can't do too much awareness training. You can put all the technical restrictions and things in place. And obviously, it's always a balance between cybersecurity and productivity and usability as well, because we're remote businesses and all hybrid these days. So you've got to create an environment for colleagues to be productive and drive the company forward without impinging on the kind of freedoms to do that. But yeah, I think it's an awareness thing, which, as you know, we've done a lot of work on of late. I think the other thing as well is the supply chain. We all have a supply chain. We do a lot of assessment of incoming suppliers at onboarding and just making sure security standards are met, because that just increases the surface area of potential attacks. So we've prevented attacks, I think, is probably the best way to say it, but they're attempted all the time.
They're attempted all the time. So there are two aspects to a cyber attack. There's a tech element and there's a human element. What are your must-have strategies for tech, and what are your must-have strategies for the human element?
It's a great question. I think they're sliders on a mixing desk, if you like. So you could go really heavily on the tech side, but as I say, you've got to create an environment where productivity can flourish and you can do what you need to do as an organization. Obviously, the pace of tech changes is faster than it's ever been. Introducing new systems, integrations, that kind of thing. Everything has to go through a risk assessment, and you need to understand actually how does it change your footprint, where are the handoff points, the boundaries of certain systems, and where are your weaknesses, and bolster things around that. We have AI in our tech stack to determine things that don't quite look right. We can terminate connections and isolate machines in an automated fashion. But with humans, it's really difficult, especially with the AI. There's been a recent AI attack using Claude Code, AI being used as a scaling tool to kind of further the attack capabilities of the bad actors. It's a difficult question to answer because you can do a lot on both sides of the fence technically, and the awareness with humans. Again, there's a lot of these things look legitimate. We block a lot of stuff from actually getting in front of our colleagues, so try and minimize that as much as possible. But could be a phone call, could be a Teams call. There's a lot for us to consider on a daily basis, and as you say, because the transformation of organizations is at such a pace, things are changing all the time. So you've really got to keep on top of all your vulnerabilities.
In terms of educating your workforce, is there a rule of thumb or is there common sense point for people to take away? Because you said it can come in all sort of forms. It could be a deep fake. It could be mimicking someone's voice and someone's phone number. What is the best strategy?
We've got to create an environment where people aren't afraid to firstly say, I'm not entirely sure it's you I'm talking to, I'll call you back, or to put their hand up if they think they've made a mistake or something's happened. The quicker we can be notified of potential breaches, then the quicker we can isolate and quarantine things and make sure we respond in the best way possible. I don't think it does anybody any favors to make them think they're going to be punished in certain ways. It's just got to be quite an open, transparent conversation as far as I'm concerned. Cross company, cross sector, the more we talk about this collectively, I think the better off we'll all be and learn from each other's experiences. But it's a great question. There's phishing, there's spear phishing, there's smishing, there's email, there's deepfake, and the question is, do you go broad or do you go deep? And I think the strategy we've taken is to go broad because you don't really know where the next attempt is going to come from. So the more we can do just to keep everybody aware of the potential attack vectors, the better.
Yeah. So take the blame game away and take the shame away and encourage people to come forward as soon as they get a funny feeling. You mentioned AI. AI as a foe or AI as a friend in the world of cybersecurity. Which camp are you in?
I think it's both. I really do. It's the amount of power that both sides of the fence now have is both a good and a bad thing. We can see certain things have been jailbroken to allow them to create kind of malicious code and packages that we wouldn't want to see anywhere near our organization. But again, as I say, we have AI in our tech stack, which assesses anomalies, I suppose, in general activity and what we would consider to be acceptable or normal activity and can intercept things. Yeah, it's definitely both. But we've only really seen in recent weeks AI being demonstrably used as an attack or in an attack. I think that's only going to increase, which means we have to kind of increase our use on the other side.
Yes. First 24 hours in the case of an attack or a potential attack are the most important. What are your top 5 things that you want to tick off in that first 24 hours? Or it could be top 3.
Well, I think my advice, obviously we all have cyber insurance. A lot of those policies dictate that you speak to them as soon as possible. In our case, we were assigned a legal team, we were assigned a forensic cyber team. It just gives you more resources really to address the problem and see what's going on. So my piece of advice there would be to make sure you know what your obligations are. To make sure coverage sticks. If you start doing things and you haven't notified your insurance company, then you could be stuck with actually fitting the bill. And utilize more resources and get your heads together. Obviously, from a technical perspective, identifying the ingress point or the device that's where the breach has started and quarantine and isolating that as much as possible. You've got to contain whatever's happening really, really quickly. And then you get into a deep investigation, forensic level investigation of how far that may or may not have gone. I think there's a fairly well-known structured approach to these kind of things. So I think in circumstances where tensions are heightened and people are concerned about what's happening, it's follow your playbooks, your business continuity playbooks, your cyber incident management playbooks, keep your exec team and your board up to speed. They tend not to like surprises of this kind. So again, it's just about open, transparent communication about what's happening. And then obviously if there has been data exfiltration or you've lost things, there are potentially legal reporting responsibilities as well. A lot of the investment that we put into cybersecurity is you hope it's an insurance policy that you never have to use. But in recent times, it's probably more a question of when, not if, to more or less of a degree. So I think it's just appreciating the world which we live in. And you could spend our budget 10 times over on cybersecurity if you wanted to. But I think take the advice from the people on the ground about the level of cover and the level of technical protection that you need and support the human elements as well. The hackers prey on people being busy, urgency. They know what they're doing, that kind of social engineering. It's the highest, the amount of cyber attacks that come from social engineering is, I think it's up there in the 90%, 95% in some recent studies. So as I say, the human bit is really important. So support through your senior leadership team, right down to people on the ground. Test. That was the other thing as well. We do tests, we do phishing simulations, and just an understanding where you are. You might be horrified by the results. You can then target certain individuals or teams, or as I say, everybody. This affects all of us. We all have a responsibility to be aware and try and keep our company safe. Yeah, it is just understanding the world which we live in and giving the right support, both financially and sort of culturally and conceptually about the initiatives and programs that we need to run.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful.